Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How is everybody? Welcome to the latest installment, episode number 3 of Roll Around, Find Out. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the RPG Knave by Ben Milton. It is extremely popular, and I would say for many, many good reasons. Being newer to the hobby, Knave and really all of the OSR was initially very confusing for me. I didn't really understand what made old school, and if it was completely separate different game, compatibility, etc., etc. But as my knowledge grew on the hobby, OSR is, in as few words as possible, I would say hardcore mode for D&D 5th edition. I just listened to an interview with Ben Milton from Deku Games, I think that's how it's pronounced. And he was being interviewed for Knave 2nd edition. And Ben kind of had said the same thing, that OSR and D&D really aren't that different. It's just lower power level. I'm 100% misquoting him on that, but that's what I took away from what he said. So, Knave... Let's go next into just the real basics of it. So it's available from Ben Milton, also known as Questing Beast, and on DriveThruRPG, it lets you know that it is 7 pages for $2.99. If you're familiar with DriveThruRPG, you kind of get a sense of the average rating scores, and if a game has, I would say, over 100, it's probably a very popular game. Knave has 251 ratings at the time of recording, and it is an adamantine, I think that's how you say it, bestseller, and for many good reasons. One, it's almost a complete game for $3, essentially. And the rule set and the uniqueness of it is just so appealing. It has tons and tons and tons of hacks available for it. And someday I might do a podcast on my hack for it. I spent... I don't know, maybe the last month and a half kind of tinkering, changing it into a roll under system, and adding skills to that. Thanks to ChatGPT, really helped me dial in these skills, but we'll save that for another podcast. On itch.io, searching for Knave, tons and tons of hacks, adventures, many of them free. And in fact, while I have purchased the official Knave, I don't use it. The formatting of the original document, it is landscape, 3 columns. And so I like to have my games, my rules printed out, and I don't know how this would work printed out. It's almost like designed to be solely a PDF, unless you like paper hole punched the top and then you flipped through that way. Very weird to me. And another criticism, I'm sure Ben Milton is quite the genius, but just a personal thing I have with it, just me, is his writing style. I have to read almost every sentence 2 or 3 times to get what he's trying to say. It's almost like he's trying to be so quick and so short with his words that it takes me a second to really figure out what he's trying to say. And to that point, I feel like in Knave, if you have it, or if you will eventually purchase it, he will describe the rule, maybe provide an example if needed, and then for things that I think are more complicated, he will add a designer's note. And without that designer's note, you're confused as to what the rule is. And so while I appreciate that he has the designer notes, I would just get rid of those and make the rule easier to understand. Okay, here are Knave's main selling points. The first thing, when you open it up, it says high compatibility with OSR games. If you have a library of OSR bestiaries, adventure, and spell books, little or no conversion is needed to use them with Knave. Okay, so OSR is huge right now. People think 5th edition's so bloated, so superhero-like. This old school renaissance, this return to the harder, advanced mode, hardcore mode of the original gaming is coming back. I see benefits to both. If you like that high level play, if you like high fantasy, your character leveling up, powering up, doing more awesome things, more epic things. Not that it couldn't happen in, basic, advanced D&D, but I don't know how often. I didn't play back then, but I don't know how often players were really battling against gods and godlike beings, massive demons of the realm, and so I think it was much more grounded, and it's just a different style. And from that perspective, I like OSR for being grounded, and I like 5th edition for power creep, I guess, and making really heroic characters. They both work for me. Okay, Knave, in this first paragraph, though, does not have a bestiary, and does not have an adventure, and does not have spells per se. I'll get into that. There are actually 100 level-less spells, but I'll get into it. Okay, fast to teach, easy to run. Here's, in my opinion, the number one reason why Knave is so successful. If you are introducing a group of new players to OSR games, Knave allows them to make characters and understand all the rules in minutes. And I agree with that. We're going to make a character in minutes and get the ball up and rolling in minutes, which is just amazing. I'm a teacher and I run a D&D club after school, and for middle schoolers, they mostly just want to be with their friends, and there's a handful that really get into it. But I've got a big collection of players' handbooks, and maybe 1 or 2 get cracked a session. The kids are making things up as they go. They're not locked in on exact movements, what spells at this level. They just, in their brains, are making up cool stuff, making up their own games, essentially, and just having fun. And that's great. In my summer school class that I ran, it's much more structured. We have a certain set of time, and my goal is to teach them about role-playing games. And so, imagine being new to the hobby and thinking back, if you've ever played 5th edition, yeah, you can make a character pretty quickly if you know it, but for these middle school kids, brand new to RPGs, you cannot, it's just so many choices. Do you want to be a human? Do you want to be a dwarf? Do you want to be an elf? Well, what are all the benefits? Okay, well, read this paragraph. Okay, well, on this page, flip through. They just don't have, we don't have the time. It would just take, especially in my summer school class, it would take probably 3-4 classes to make a well fleshed out character. And that's like a quarter of the time that we have together. And so I had done D&D for 2 summers, and this summer I decided to implement Knave. And instead of 3 or 4 classes, we got him up and running in about half a class. And that was amazing. All right. The second thing, which I think is huge, and I don't know every, role-playing game system out there. So for me, this was brand new, and it took me a little while to understand just how awesome it is. But Knave is classless. There's no cleric, no fighter, no sorcerer, things like that. And so I'll read. Every PC is a knave, a tomb-raiding, adventure-seeking ne'er-do-well who wields a spell book just as easily as a blade. This is an ideal system for players who like to switch up their character's focus from time to time and don't like being pigeonholed. A PC's role in the party is determined largely by the equipment they carry. And we'll get into it, but that last sentence there, your equipment becomes your character. If you want to be a fighter, your job is to search for a sword or a weapon that, and we'll get into this too, that hopefully the DM bestows upon you or becomes available during the game. You can start out with any weapon you want, but it's very basic, which is OSR themed. It's just a sword. And maybe you're just stuck with that same sword for the whole campaign. But you could have a bow, and you wield a bow just as well as your sword. We'll get into spells here later because I think that's interesting. Next feature here, abilities are king. All D20s use the 6 standard abilities. The way that ability scores and bonuses work has also been cleaned up, rationalized, and made consistent with how other systems like armor work. To criticize this, it says it's been cleaned up, rationalized, and made consistent, but with what? So that's why when I read this, was there another edition prior to this? I still don't know what he is intending for that sentence to be. Next one, optional player-facing roles. Knave easily accommodates referees who want the players to do all the rolling. Switching between the traditional shared rolling model and players-only rolling can be done effortlessly on the fly. We're going to read that because it's in my summer school class. That's how I decided to initially turn it into a roll under system. I was confused by how they can roll to block from, a mind flayer. What are they? They don't know the mind flayer stats. So what are they rolling on? So we'll get into that. Just an interesting, more so OSR themed. Copper is the standard as opposed to gold. That's just an interesting point that they have here. And then a list of 100 level-less spells. And I'll talk about how awesome I think those are, but also possible confusion and how lacking they can be also. Next section on here is how to create a character, but we will skip that. We will come back later. There's a good amount of tables for customizing your character, both physically and the gear that they carry. On page 4 here, it's the main category of playing the game. They go over what the 6 ability scores are, same as D&D: Strength, Dex, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma. There's a designer's note. In a system that relies so heavily on the 6 abilities, it's important for each of them to play an important role, to discourage dump stats. Non-magical characters tend to dump the mental abilities, for example, so I increase their usefulness. Using a bow is ranged attack in D&D, which is Dex, but in Knave it's Wisdom. Intelligence here is for spellcasting, and every other ability is basically the same as 5th edition D&D. Major feature: since your inventory defines your character, there are item slots, and you can you have a number of item slots equal to your Constitution defense, and we'll get into what defense means. But that's a super awesome feature. There are items that certainly take up more than one slot. In 5th edition D&D, Constitution is pretty much your health points, and that's about it, at least in my experience. Maybe, you're resisting against poison, things like that, but in the games I've played, Constitution does not come up very much, so love that they gave it a new purpose. Saving throws. If a character attempts something where the outcome is uncertain and failure has consequences, they make a saving throw or save. To make a save, add the bonus of the relevant ability to a d20 roll. If the total is greater than 15, the character succeeds. If not, they fail. I've talked in other of my podcasts that this arbitrary 15, Ben Milton in his designer notes says that requiring saves to exceed 15 means that new PCs have around a 25% chance of success, while level 10 characters have around a 75% chance of success. And I appreciate the percentage that he shows you there, because that's a major reason why I love roll under systems. But to just always be 15, I'm probably going on a rant every episode about difficulty number. I guess I like that at least in Knave, Ben is right up front letting you know, hey, when you have to avoid something, 15's the number to beat. As opposed to the DM just arbitrarily making up numbers. So I guess I respect that. But to that point, just the system that it lives in, why 15? Why not 14? If it's a percentage game, I understand. But is every task that the player is saving from always a 15? Maybe, they're dodging Dragon's Breath. Is that the same save as dodging out of the way from a spike being coming out of the floor on a trap floor? I don't know. I feel like dodging a Dragon's Breath has got to be more difficult. So again, that's the flaws I see with a difficulty number. Under saving throws, Ben Milton gives 3 designer notes, which, to the point I said earlier, just make the rules easier to understand. All right. Next major category we have is combat. At the start of each combat round, determine initiative by rolling a d6. On a 1 to 3, all the enemies will act first. On a 4 to 6, all the PCs will act first. Reroll initiative each round. Love rerolling initiative each round. It just mixes it up. Players are on their toes more. It's probably more... the inconsistency of it is more consistent with how I think normal combat would go. It's not always just blow for blow for blow with you and your enemies. Things are becoming more dynamic all the time. Okay. It says on their turn, they can move their speed and take up to 1 combat action. This action may be casting a spell, making a second move, making an attack, attempting a stunt, which we'll get into stunts, or any other action deemed reasonable by the referee. Here's the player-facing roles. Alternatively, an attack roll can also be resolved by the defender rolling a d20 and adding their armor bonus, hoping to roll greater than the defense ability of the attacker. Let me get this right. Alternatively, an attack roll can also be resolved by the defender rolling a d20 and adding their armor bonus, hoping to roll a total greater than the defense of the ability the attacker is using. If they succeed, the attack misses. If they fail, the attack hits. Designer's note: in other words, attacks are resolved the same way as opposed saves, just using armor in place of an ability. Okay, so something I don't like about that, player-facing roles are amazing. Keeps them more engaged, and it frees up the DM to do other things. However, they still then have to know the defense of the ability the attacker is using. And that kind of, to me, is an extra step. They should be rolling under their stats, like Into the Odd, in Bare Bones Fantasy, Warhammer Fantasy. Because how do they know what the get the term right, the defense of the ability the attacker is using? How do they know that number? Sure, the DM can, tell them, but to me that takes it out of role playing into a game, a numbers game. Okay. Next page of rules. Won't go over all of these, but we have stunts, advantage, critical hits and quality, morale, healing, monsters, and leveling advancement. Okay, stunts, I like this. I feel these are underused in typical combat. These are stunning, shoving, disarming, tripping, and so on. They are resolved with a versus save. They may not cause damage directly, but may do so indirectly. For example, pushing an enemy off a ledge. The referee is the final arbiter as to what stunts can be attempted in a given situation. Now this line here, the referee is the final arbiter. I'm going to refer back to that for spells. Advantage in combat. If the enemies are unaware, lower ground, off balance, etc., they can be granted advantage. Critical hits. Here's an interesting mechanic. During an attack roll, if the attacker rolls a natural 20, or the defender rolls a natural 1, the defender's armor loses 1 point of quality, and they take an additional die of damage. If the attacker rolls a natural 1 or the defender rolls a natural 20, the attacker's weapon loses 1 point of quality. At 0 quality, the item is destroyed. Each point of quality costs 10% of the item's cost to repair. Love the realism of this. Yeah, you're going to get a critical hit, but because you hit them so hard, you're dealing damage to your weapon. And that's, to me, a very OSR thing. Just when you think you're doing great, there's something that's going to bring you back down to reality. I believe this to be an optional rule. So DM dependent, but I think it's a pretty cool mechanic. Healing. After a meal and a full night's rest, PCs regain lost hit points equal to a D8 plus their Constitution bonus. Resting at a safe haven restores all HP. I like that. That makes sense. I like that a meal and a full night's rest will not give you full health. If you're still in danger, you're still out in the wild, you are not safe. And I like that. Monsters, just real quick, it says all monsters from OSR bestiaries should work as in Knave with no major conversions needed. Here are some guidelines, and they talk about hit points, armor, attack bonus, all of these things. I would like to see Knave provide a couple of monsters, but I understand for its cost, it's only 7 pages. And with it being OSR compatible, you should have easy access. And looking at my bookshelf, basic fantasy, go pick up a bestiary for like $5, $5 or $6, and you've got hours and hours of fun right there. Leveling up. Whenever a PC accumulates 1,000 XP, they gain a level. As a guideline, PCs receive 50 XP for low-risk accomplishments, 100 for moderate-risk accomplishments, 200 for high-risk accomplishments. The referee should freely notify the PCs of how much XP different objectives are worth when asked. I like that too, even though I had just criticized I don't like the gamification of letting players know their enemy's essential armor class. I do like that they should know, if I do this, is it worth my time? In real life, you know, I don't just get hired for a job and not ask what I'm going to get paid. And so, very much so, if a group of PCs are going to go out and do something, they should know what they're going to get out of it. Beyond just the empty promise of treasure and wealth. When PCs gain a level, they roll a number of D8s equal to their new level and find their new HP maximum. If the result is less than their previous maximum, their maximum HP increases by 1. They also raise the defense and bonus scores of 3 different abilities of their choice by 1 point. Abilities may never be raised higher than 20 and a plus 10 bonus. We'll get into what the bonuses mean when we make a character here. Last 2 pages are all about magic. First paragraph here under magic. The spell lists from any old school RPG will work perfectly well in Knave, provided they go up to 9th level. There are many free lists of classic spells available online. I remember doing a cursory search of that and really not finding a lot of spells out there. So somebody listening might say, oh, I know exactly where to find it. It's easy. But in my little search, couldn't find one. In Knave, PCs may only cast spells of their level or less. So a level 3 PC could only cast spells of levels 0 to 3. Spells are cast out of spell books, which must be held in both hands and read aloud. Each spell book can only be used once per day. Importantly, each spell book only holds a single spell, and each spell book takes up an item slot. So if a PC wants to be able to cast a wide variety of spells, they'll have to fill most of their inventory with spell books. Lots to unpack here. I'd criticize the way that Ben writes. It's not that he's writing poorly, it just doesn't jive with the way my brain works. So this first paragraph says you can use any old spell book. Okay. And then next paragraph. In Knave, PCs may only cast spells of their level or less. So a level 3 PC could only cast spells of level 0 to 3. Well, the next section talks about levelless spells. And so just the way he words it here, in Knave, PCs may only cast spells of their level or less. Just the way my brain works, I wish he would have worded it, added more words and said, in Knave, if using other spell books or old school RPG spells, then levels come into play. Because I'm about to show you that there's 100 level-less spells. The disconnect is that it's in a separate paragraph. So when I read in Knave, I think he means, oh, the spells that he provides, which are level-less, which we'll get into. Again, that's just me. Okay. There are 100 level-less spells, and these are cool. It says, if you prefer spells that are level-less and scale up as the caster becomes more powerful, use the list below. In the following spells, quote, capital L is a number equal to the caster's level. An item is an object able to be lifted with one hand, and an object is anything up to human size. Unless otherwise noted, all spells with ongoing effects last up to level times 10 minutes and have a range of up to 40 feet. If a spell directly affects another creature, the creature may make a save to avoid it. Success reduces or negates the spell's effects. So just a couple spells here of the 100. There is Beast Form. You and your possessions transform into a mundane animal. Okay. How long? Well, the default is level times 10 minutes. Cool. Body Swap. You switch bodies with a creature you touch. If one body dies, the other dies as well. Interesting. Classic spell, Charm. L level. Creatures treat you like a friend. Cool. Fog Cloud. Dense fog spreads out from you. Going down the list. Marble Madness. Your pockets are full of marbles and will refill every round. Ooze Form. You become a living jelly. Pit. A pit 10 foot wide and level times 5 feet deep opens in the ground. Sleep. L or level creatures fall into a light sleep. Ward. A silver circle 40 feet across appears on the ground. Choose one thing that cannot cross it. Living creatures, dead creatures, projectiles, or metal. Let me find one more. Let me go back. Counter Spell, which is a very high level in D&D. Counter Spell. Make an imposed intelligence save against the intelligence of the caster of a nearby spell. You may do this out of turn as a reaction or against an ongoing magical effect. On a success, you may cancel the spell. That is like super powerful for a first level in Knave, I feel. Now, here's one criticism, and I've read through these. Maybe I'm missing them, but none of these spells deal damage. Now, I had gone back and talked about it for stunts, where it says the referee is the final arbiter as to what's the... Oh, no, excuse me. No. Here's the line from stunts, the one right before it. They may not cause damage directly, but may do so indirectly. For example, pushing an enemy off a ledge. So there's a spell called Pit, and maybe you get a creature to fall in a pit. Okay? Well, how much damage does it do? It's up to the DM to decide, and I don't really like that. Inconsistency, maybe, one time I say, oh, it's a D10 worth of damage, and then another it's, a D12. Okay, well, he fell 10 feet, so it's 1d6 for however many feet. Well, what is that feat? Maybe it's a super big creature, so more impact on his bones. And so the DM kind of has to make it up on the fly, and I feel like that could just cause some issues with some players. They want to know, hey, if I cast this spell, how much damage is it going to do? Because it's not mentioned, it could be 0. It could just, you could have a DM that says, okay, the NPC, the monster, the creature falls into a pit. He can't get out. Well, what about the damage? He fell. Well, it doesn't say he does any damage. So I wish on here it said damage times level. Deals 1d6 damage per level. There is a second edition of Knave coming out. I think I've got a preview copy of it because I'm a backer. But I'll have to go back and double check. I know they changed how characters are made, but I don't know if they changed how spells work. That would be interesting. Okay. We're going to make a character here in a bit. And for any flaw that I've said, it's really a minor critique. I would run Knave any day of the week. I prefer something with a little more depth, more mechanics, but I've got a small group of people that I know are interested in playing, and I've got another group of people that always are interested in it. Tell me more about it. Well, maybe if I'm free, we'll plan something. And I would never start them out 5th edition for a one-shot unless I had pre-made character sheets. And there's definite pros and cons to that. I feel like the biggest pro is you're up and running instantly. Maybe you have to do some explaining, but usually me or whatever DM just explains the character sheet as needed. But the biggest con is they're not necessarily invested in who that character is. Obviously, it's their job to take on the role in role-playing, the role of that character. But especially for new players, they don't really necessarily understand that. They think that they're themselves while playing. So with Knave, if they're making the actual character, they've got more buy-in. And going back to my middle schoolers in my summer school class, they loved their characters. They got to roll on the tables to see what they got, and that was exciting for them, the randomness of it. And if I didn't mention this, the layout of Knave is weird to me. However, on itch.io, there are 2 versions. One in particular I like much more because it keeps the designer notes. But let me pull it up here. It is called Knave Booklet. And I paid for Knave because I wanted to support Ben and this great product he has. But if you want Knave for free, go to itch.io and either search Knave Booklet or Knave Zine format, and it's free on there. And as far as I can tell, it's everything that Knave is, just in a much better layout and free. One cool thing about this Knave Booklet is the character sheet is the back of the rules. So I printed out 7 pages, stapled it together. My players have all the rules they need, all their character creation right there, and right away their character sheet's right on the back, no flipping through papers, it's right there. So for its simplicity, Knave is amazing. No reason you can't run an extensive campaign with Knave. I just think there's, if you're going to, how would I say it? If you're going to do more with your game, find a system that does more. But this is 100% totally serviceable. More than even serviceable, it's great. So we're going to make a character here. And if my memory serves me, when I made my bare bones fantasy character, it took 12 minutes. And so I've got my recording software up, but I'm going to do it just slightly different. I'm going to start a timer. And let me do stopwatch. Stopwatch is what I want. Get a stopwatch. And okay, I'm going to cheat just a little bit. I'm going to have my character sheet up and then the rules on my laptop. So I won't have to be doing so much flipping back and forth. All right. Hitting start on the stopwatch. Here's Knave the rules. Okay, character creation. PCs have 6 abilities: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Each ability has 2 related values, a defense and a bonus. When creating a PC, roll 3d6 for each of their abilities, in order. The lowest of the 3 dice on each roll is that ability's bonus. Add 10 to find the defense. Now, when I first read through this, I really struggled with what that meant. The lowest of the 3 dice on each roll is that ability's bonus. Because when I roll 3d6, I'm adding them up. That's how every other role-playing game works. But he doesn't do it that way. It just says the lowest of the 3 dice on each roll is that ability's bonus. So we'll get into that. I'm going to just do it straight down the line. So I'm going to type in roll dice on Google. Pull up 3d6. Roll them. All right, a 1, a 6, and a 4. So my bonus for strength, because that's the first stat, my lowest is a 1, is 1. I'm going to roll again for dex. My lowest is a 3, so my bonus is 3. Constitution is a 1. Roll again for intelligence, that's a 1. I have a 2, 2, and a 1. Roll for wisdom, a 4, a 3, and a 4. So 3 is the lowest. And charisma is, a 4. Not too bad, I guess. All right, what these bonuses mean for 5th edition lovers or players, that is your ability score bonus. So if you have a 10, it's plus 0, 1 is plus 0, 12 is plus 1. Well, that's where these come from. So when you're rolling and you're using your strength, you're going to add to whatever you roll for that. Okay? So, and then it says for defense, these are for saving throws. When I need to do that, I am going to add 10. So strength is 11, dexterity is 13, constitution is 11, intelligence is 11, wisdom is 13, charisma is 14. Pencil bro. Cool. Okay. Number 2 on character creation. PCs start with 2 days of ration and 1 weapon of their player's choice. Roll on the starting gear tables on the following page to determine starting armor and equipment. Okay. Go down 1 page. There's armor. And it doesn't say roll a d20. You have to use your brain and realize that the numbers above each armor are what you're getting. So I'm going to roll for armor a 4. So I have Gambeson. So I'm putting that in my item slot. Gambeson. Before I forget, I'm going to go down to the next page, item costs, And armor, Gambison takes up 1 slot and has 3 quality. So I'm going to put a little 3 in my item slot, only because I've played this before, so I know to do that. And my armor is 12. Yep. So defense is 12. I might have messed up my armor bonus, but it must be 2. If the defense is 12 for Gambison, bonus must be 2. Okay, do I have a helmet? Let's roll. Or a shield. 17. I have a shield, so I'm writing that down, which brings my defense up from 12 to 13. Hoping my bonus is now 3. We'll have to see if I skip that in the directions or not. Okay. Dungeoneering gear. Roll twice on this table. 20. I have 5 torches. Writing that down in my item slots. And I have a 15 for a mirror. Okay. General gear. I roll once on the following. And here's just another issue I have with the way Ben Milton does this. Dungeoneering gear is the title, and underneath that it says roll twice on this table and once on the following 2. Okay, I wish it just said roll twice on this table. Then for the next table, roll once. Next table, roll once. All right? Maybe I'm just dumb, and that's very possible. But to me, don't give me directions in one place to tell me to go do something else. Give me the directions right where I need it. All right. General gear number 1. 19. I get a metal file. And general gear number 2, a 12 for a blank book. All right, my constitution is 11, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 11 filled. All right, PC start with 2 rations and 1 weapon of their player's choice. Oh, okay, so I gotta go grab a weapon. So the more damage it does, the more space it takes up, and the more expensive it is. So I don't quite know what type of character I want to make yet, but my wisdom's pretty high, and for Knave, that is ranged attack. So I'm going to do a... Well, okay, I was just going to do crossbow, but here it says that's 2 hands. Oh, and a bow is 2 hands. Well, I have a shield. Choices. Okay. I will do a sling, which I will make note on here only does a D4, which is the lowest, but it is one-handed. And it only takes up 1 slot. Alright, I will change that if needed. Sling is ranged, so that does play better into my wisdom. Back up to character creation. Number 3. Roll 1d8 to determine your PC's starting and maximum hit points. Okay, D8. Roll it. A 4. Now, when I did this for my summer school kids, I feel bad. I don't want them dying right away. You know, they want to make big heroic characters. So I gave them a max roll of 8 plus one more D8 of whatever they rolled. So they got a max of 16. The lowest they could have got is 9. But for this, I'm starting with 4. PC's healing rate is 1d8 plus their constitution. Exploring speed is 120 feet per turn. Combat speed is 40. Alright, invent or roll the rest of your PC's traits, such as their physique, skin, hair, virtue, speed, background. Choose a gender and a name for your PC, but don't get too attached. Alright, let me see if I can find the armor. Let's see. Here we go. Armor comes with an armor defense value. Note that value on your character sheet with its corresponding armor bonus. Always 10 less than the defense. If the PC is not wearing any armor, their defense is 11 and their armor bonus is +1. So yeah, I had that right. Because of my armor and my shield, my defense is 3, so my bonus is +3. Okay? So, there are lots of tables to roll on here. And for time, I know I'm timing myself, I'm going to just pick. I'm going to just always do whatever 10 says. So I am a scrawny, broken, pockmarked, greased, stained individual. But I am honest. My vice is... Oh, I don't even know this word. Irascible. Let me go Google that real quick. Irascible. Ben Milton and his bigger brain than me. Having or showing a tendency to be easily angered. Well, I'm apparently pretty ugly. My speech is hoarse. My background is an herbalist. And my misfortunes are I am exiled. Well, that's because I'm so ugly in greasy clothes. I guess. I mean, hey, I've got a character and now I can roleplay him. Last thing on here is alignment. If you care about that, I will roll, but I don't necessarily like putting that up to random. 14 would have me at neutral. Okay. In the directions, or in the character creation, somewhere it says magic, that first level characters should not start out with magic. My intelligence score is pretty low, but I would like some spells, so you would have to talk to your DM about that. And I could spend some time buying some things, like I could get a dog or something to accompany me. Oh yeah, also starting copper. Armor and equipment, copper standard, Control F, copper. Okay, in the designer notes, yeah, here we go. Okay, character create. Well, let me look at the time. Where am I at for time? 13 minutes? Holy baloney. That's as much as Bare Bones Fantasy. Now, I know I was doing some explaining, but at the table, the DM's going to have to help new players. That is wild to me. That is really wild. Borderline disappointed. Now, here's an example. Okay, let me go back to it. Let me find Knave. Alright, character creation. Number 2. PCs start with 2 days of rations and 1 weapon of their choice. Roll on the starting gear tables on the following page to determine starting armor and equipment. I'm ignoring the designer's notes. PCs have a number of item slots equal to their constitution defense, and items they carry must fit into available slots. Most items take up 1 slot, but some take up more. Some small items can be bundled together into a single slot. Ask the referee if you are unsure. Armor comes with an armor defense value. Note that value on your character sheet. And then we move on to number 3, the next section. So, now let me read the designer notes. Rolling for starting equipment dramatically speeds up the character creation process, which is important if you're playing a high lethality game like Knave. If you want to permit shopping for equipment, however, have players roll 3d6 times 20 to find their starting copper pieces. Note that spellbooks are not Note that spellbooks are not normally available to new PCs, but you could always add random spellbook to the Dungeoneering gear table, or simply allow new PCs to roll a random spell in exchange for not starting with any armor. Okay, wild. So I can start with gold if I don't pick anything out. So let me search copper again. In advancement, designer's note. This is the way I run advancement because it's simple and easy to understand, of course. Swapping in milestone advancement, session advancement, or an XP for coin system works perfectly well. If using XP for gold or silver, note that a gold piece is 100 copper. Yep, don't care. Okay. Copper standard assumes that common units of copper, all prices. Okay, it does not tell you what you start with for copper. I'm on the PDF. I hit Control F, search copper. Maybe I don't start with any, and that's fine, but you should definitely say that. DM would have to rule something. D20 is your copper. Make a justification for your stat. Whatever, maybe add up all your bonuses. I don't know, but it is not mentioned in there. And in the designer's notes, is where more information is. And so I just don't like the structure of that. Put what I need to know in the rules. Okay. I may sound critical of Knave. There is a second edition, like I had mentioned. And I know that they drastically change how skills are done. It's no longer bonus. Whatever the lowest dice is was your bonus. I think it's more traditional. I could be way off on that. But I remember reading that and being disappointed because this is a cool, unique way to do it. And for a starting character, I'm totally fine with my bonuses being +1s. The fact that I have 2 +3s and a +4, I think I have a pretty powerful first level character in the OSR world. I've rolled other ones where the highest is a 2. But little disappointed to hear that second edition is going to be different. They have starting packages. That's another thing with Knave 2. In a video that Ben Milton came out with, he had said, each stat is basically a class. So if you have high strength, you're the fighter. If you have high intelligence, you're the wizard. And they give you equipment packages to start out with, which, 1, nice because that's very fast, but 2, that kind of pulls me away from the classless system that Knave is known for. If you're going to kind of sort of steer me in one direction, that's a little unfortunate. Just because my charisma is currently the highest on my character, that doesn't necessarily mean I don't want to grow and evolve my character into a strong fighter. And I'm sure with the new system, Knave 2nd Edition, I probably could do that as well. But somewhere in here in the designer's note, I'm sure, I don't want to be pigeonholed. If I start out with an equipment set, and apparently I start out with 0 copper, it's going to take me quite a while to figure out how I get enough gold and who I have to talk to get the type of character that I'm really wanting. So, final thoughts. Even though I may sound critical of Knave, And Ben's writing style, while is totally fine, it just doesn't jive with the way my brain works. I think he tries to just use as few words as possible, but a little bit more would go a long way for me. The original Knave, the layout, 3 columns in landscape is wild to me. But tables to get started, amazing. Classless system, amazing. Levelless spells that level up as you level, that's how D&D should be. Yep. What did I give Bare Bones Fantasy? 9.5. I give Knave 8.5. And that's my bias of my biggest gripe of the DC always having to beat 15 for saving throws. And being a rollover system, so I understand that I'm hypercritical of those. But for new players, just getting in, rolling for stats is fun. Random table for items, fun. Easy mechanics for the DM, great. Other random things, artwork, non-existent. It's all words. DMs, I would not use Knave as a first time for DMs. I think there's just too much of the game out there. Not mentioned in the book. Ben knows that OSR is usually for people that are already versed in what a role-playing game is and how to play it. No bestiary, so you'll need other resources for that. But I don't know if it's mentioned in here. It's definitely mentioned somewhere, and Ben has said it himself. This is a toolkit meant to be hacked. And that's what I did, and in a future video, I'll go over it. Future podcast, I'll go over it. I'm just rambling at this point. Ben Milton, you've done a huge service to the RPG OSR community with Knave, giving it that Creative Commons where anybody can hack it. Such a great, simple system. Once you understand it, I mean, for $3, endless amounts of fun. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.